What is going on, everybody? Been a diehard Pistons fan since '03 and eager to see this team getting back to playing winning basketball. The Detroit Pistons are officially back. The Pistons will be taking on the Indiana Pacers in their opener today/tomorrow, depending on when you're watching. It'll be Wednesday night at 7 p.m. on FanDuel TV, previously known as Bally Sports Detroit. The name change happened just today, so if you guys weren't up to date on that, don't want to scare you. You can watch at the same place where you always have. In this video, we are going to go over 3 things that I am interested to see in the opening game. We're going to go over what I think the ticket to a win is going to be, what it'll take to get the win, and then I do have one quick reminder for you all at the end of the video that does pertain to the season. So to kick things off, the first thing of 3 that I am going to be interested to see is going to be who are the starters. During the preseason, we saw quite a few different lineups. I think Cade's a lock, Tobias is a lock, Duren is a lock. It seems like Ivy is a lock as well. That 5th spot was Tim Hardaway Jr. whenever Tobias was in the lineup, but Simone Fontecchio did start a game where Tobias was out. So pretty curious to see what not only the starting lineup is, but what the rotation actually is. If the preseason was any indicator, it will likely be Cade, Ivy, Duren, Tobias, Tim Hardaway Jr., Beasley, Fontecchio, Stewart, and Holland. But we're just going to have to wait and see on that one. And I think that after just even tomorrow, but, a kind of a mix of the first week or so, we'll have a way better idea on who the rotation will actually consist of. So the second thing I am curious to see is going to be if they can keep up the defensive intensity that I saw throughout the preseason. Now, I don't know if my mind has just been poisoned after last year, but it really felt like that there was more effort on the defensive end, and it was coming from a lot of different players. It felt like Jalen Duren was more active on defense. In the game against the Warriors, he had 3 blocks, which is a pretty rare sight for him. Ron Holland, of course, injected this team with defensive energy every time he stepped on the floor. Guys like Ivy were fighting harder off ball, and I didn't see nearly as many times of defensive assignments just absolutely blowing or players falling asleep on defense during the preseason, even compared to the regular season last year. I know that this wasn't a huge hot button topic that a lot of Pistons fans have been talking about throughout the preseason, but I really could notice the difference in just defensive intensity. Guys were clapping on defense, getting into it, which was something that, like I said, might be a little bit of poisoned in my mind from the end of last year, where things were really rough from a morale standpoint. But I'm curious to see if they can keep that up and maybe take it to even a higher level. So the third thing that I am going to be intrigued to see is going to be if Jaden Ivey can continue to show us what he has shown us through preseason. It's no secret that Jaden Ivey had a fantastic preseason. It was even getting to the point where he was getting a lot of love from national media, whether that just be independent podcasters or even on ESPN, they were talking about him. He had incredible shooting splits. Everything was clicking for Jaden Ivey in the preseason. And if he's able to take that, what he did in the preseason, and show it in opening night, I think that will just confirm in even more people's heads that he is here to stay and he has taken a major leap forward. We've talked about it on this channel throughout the preseason, the improvements that he has made, whether that be in shooting or decision making, all seem to be very, very real and not short-term, small sample size stuff. You can really see it. It jumps off the screen. So I do have some pretty high expectations for Jaden Ivey going into the year. And I think that there will be a pretty awesome night for all of us if Jaden Ivey can show that in game in the home opener. So that's the 3 things that I'm intrigued by to see. Now I want to talk about what I think the ticket to win will be. I think that if Cade Cunningham and Tobias Harris both score the ball at average or above average clips for themselves, or what I can expect from them going forward, I think that will put us in the position to win. The Indiana Pacers are, of course, a high-scoring team last year. They get up and down. So we're going to have to put some points on the board, and I think that that's going to have to come from Cade and Tobias Harris. If you guys remember back to the first preseason game they played together, Tobias Harris scored like 12 points all in a row, right off tip, and then directly after that, Cade went off for like 14 in a row by himself, leading to 28 points combined from them in the first quarter. I think that version of the Pistons with those two both getting to their spots and getting their buckets is exactly what they'll need to match the firepower from the Indiana Pacers. And there's obviously going to be a lot of kind of opening night energy from both sides. So I think that that's going to be the main thing, is keeping up with them on the offensive side, scoring the basketball, and I think it's going to have to come from these two. I'm thinking if Cade can get himself his cool 25 and Tobias can chip in 23 or 24, I think that'll put us in a position where we can be competitive in this game. But at the end of the day, against the Pacers, you're not going to beat them in a 85 to 90 old school style type of basketball game. You're going to have to keep up with them, scoring buckets. And if we're going to do that at a high level, it's going to have to start with these two. So I think that's going to be the number one thing that's going to help this team win. If Cade and Tobias can combine for 60 points together, I think that will win the game. I do not think that there's any chance that we lose if those two can really get off like that. But that's really just the top of mind for me right now on what I think the ticket to win will be. I think that once we see this team in action all together as a unit, we'll have a lot better of an idea on how to predict indicators on these types of things. But for right now, considering the matchup against the Pacers, I think that's the number one thing that we're going to need to do in order to win this game. So now that we're towards the end of the video, I do want to give a quick reminder, and that is to just not overreact to this. I'm not only saying this for your guys' sake, but I'm saying it for my sake as well. I'm always relatively good at being able to zoom out, understand sample sizes, not really trying to take one game where something happens that I already kind of believe, and then using that one game as a confirmation to spike the ball and prove my point in victory lap. I don't like to do that, and I try and cognitively not do that. But there is one time a year where I easily do fall victim of that, and it's at the very start of the season. A wise man once said, the NBA season really doesn't start until Christmas Day. I know that that's really not the case for us now because the Pistons are so far out of playoff contention for the past couple of years, and that's something that, teams that are actually competing typically say. But I get the gist of it, right? They say that because a lot of things happen in October, let alone November basketball in the NBA that makes it very easy to overreact and kind of can leave you walking away believing things that don't end up being true in the long run. Just to go back at this time last year, 3 games into the season, the Pistons were 2-1. I thought we were going to be in the playoffs. At that point in time, I think Jaime Jaquez was higher on the rookie ladder than Victor Wembanyama. Asar Thompson was in the top 3. So it's just so easy to get ahead of ourselves this early in the year. So I just want to throw that out there. I've already talked about it in other videos, but I feel like it's so important because if you're excited like I am, you're going to be susceptible to seeing something going on tomorrow night and believing that that's just going to be the case for the entire year, which it probably won't be. Good or bad. Cade might get 45 tomorrow and it'd be easy to walk away saying he's going to be all NBA. Cade might get 4 tomorrow and it might be easy to walk away and saying we need to get rid of him. Neither of those things will be what it is at the end of the year. I guess if I really had to pick one, I think that if Cade gets 45 tomorrow, just watch out. But that's another story for another day. I'm sure you guys could tell. I'm stupid excited for the season to start. The Pistons are back. We're here. We made it. The off season is over. I'll catch up with y'all soon.